My bald one. There we go.
Okay, welcome to another fantastic interview as part of the Clutch AO series. As ever, I have my trusty partner and friend, Andrew Hill from Sydney, an elite level 4 coach, so knows his
Hi,
way
everyone.
around the court. And blessed are we to have Mr. Dan Kiernan. Um, Dan, look, you can introduce yourself better than I can introduce you. Who are you? And what are you
Well,
doing in Melbourne?
firstly, Mark, blessed am I to be speaking to you guys. So thank you for having me. I'm in the rival city of Melbourne, so Andrew might not be happy. I don't know if it's a Sydney Melbourne thing, but I am where everyone needs to be at this time of year. This is the place to be. Once you've been at the Australian Open in Melbourne in January, in the next January, if you're not there, you have this horrible feeling thinking, why am I not at the Australian Open? So I'm really lucky to be here. It's always a pleasure to be at in my opinion, sorry Wimbledon fans, but the greatest tennis tournament in the world, the Australian Open. And
No, heresy. Well, where have you come from then? If you're in Aussie now, where's base?
it well, so base, I was in New Zealand last week, which is not base, my first time in New Zealand. But base camp is Soto Grande, Spain, where I run the Soto Tennis Academy. And through doing that over the last 15 years, it's taken me to lots of different places. And now coaching, I'm the coach of Gaby Dabrowski and Erin Routliffe. And
Excellent.
recently started coaching Michael Venus and Nikola Mektic.
Okay.
So we had our first week together in Auckland last week. So I'm a busy man. It's 9:15 at night, and I'm still here at Melbourne Park, but
Yeah.
being
And you're
but
going to
busy
hop off
doing what
us
I love.
and go to a live stream. So how lucky are we? Um,
It's
Before we get into my favorite topic, which is about beating versus better, you've been with Gabby and Erin for a while now. What have you done to take them to the level where they are now? Because one is ranked number one, I think. One is ranked number three. They won a Grand Slam. They won the Masters, but they weren't like that when you took over the reins.
I want to preempt that by saying they've done it.
Oh,
I've
Dan.
helped I've I've helped guide it, and the thing I would say on that is also the timing was right. I think the timing was right. A lot good coaching is a lot about timing, and I think the timing of personalities, the timing of where people are at in their lives, and I think that's the first thing to say. I think I was the right coach at the right time, for them, and I was the right coach to come in and help kind of collaborate with other people that are involved as well. So I think that's the first thing, and I think that's a really important point because there isn't such a thing as the best coach. It's the best coach for a situation and for a person within that situation at any given time.
It seems like fitting into the team and being a team player is key for you.
Yes. It's massive, and that was the first thing. And look, Erin and Gabby will admit this themselves. They were two individuals when I started with them, bloody good tennis players, but very quickly it became apparent that they needed help in understanding how to become a team. And I would say there's two big things, when it's that will have gone into this success. One is that ability to become a team and to start to understand the right dynamics, whether that's personality, whether that's game style, whether that's how they operate on and off the court. And the second part is then obviously the tactical element and having absolute clarity of what they're doing on the court, at all times.
What about ego?
Mine or theirs?
Well, everybody's. No, everybody's, because you're
No,
all a
Could be
team.
shared.
One weak
it's
link and you're done.
it, it it's massive. It's absolutely massive. It's actually a conversation I've just had with a coach there. Like the biggest thing for me as a coach is our egos need to be absolutely firmly placed at the door. Players get one go at this. We get lots of goals, as coaches. So it's not about us. It's about them. That's one of the challenges with doubles is these players have been told for 20 years, you're good, you're talented, you're amazing, think about yourself, be selfish, be independent, and then all of a sudden we're saying, actually, think about this other person. What do you think? How do you think that will work for that person? And that does obviously involve parking egos. It also, I guess, combining egos, right? Like the
Yeah.
girls have made $2.5 million since I've worked with them in 18 months, because their egos have come together, and they're great competitors. So you collaborate egos in the right direction and
What a
get everyone
great
working in the
concept.
right
I've
place.
never ever heard that,
Things
Dan.
work.
Collaboration of egos. So for amateur tennis players that are looking this, not only is there training to leave your ego behind in pursuit of team, but there is also ego stacking, if you like, how 1 and 1 can make 3.
Absolutely. Look, we all have a bit of a light that goes off in our head, right? That motivates us, that drives us, and ultimately, it has to be a win for everybody involved. The same with myself, right? You know, I dedicate a hell of a lot of time to coaching these players, and I'm a very happily married man with 3 kids in the south of Spain with a great life and a tennis academy. So for me to give up the time that I give up, it's yes, I genuinely deeply care about these girls and I want them to have a great success on the tennis court, but I also want people to think I'm doing a good job, and I want my reputation to build, and that there's obviously positives that come with that, whether that's financial gain, whether that's career gain, and also the big one for me, experience gain. I'm living the life, this incredible life, watching tennis on the best courts in the world and having an impact on some tennis players. And I tell you what, it's bloody good fun. We're lifting trophies, we're selling. It's hard, but it's great fun. So it's working for all of us so far.
And you were on the Pro Tour yourself, singles and doubles?
Yeah,
Doubles.
it feels wrong to talk about my professional tennis playing career, Mark, when we've just been
Yeah.
talking about some Grand Slam
Yeah, yeah.
champions.
Yeah, okay, we'll skip over
It's
that.
it's
We'll skip
it's
over
not a
that
very
then.
smooth move, into my. I wasn't quite their level, but yeah, certainly the experiences I had as a tennis player massively help. And I was British number 1, so I was no donut. I
Yeah.
played Grand Slams. I had some relative success on the court. And all of that goes into it, right? Your playing career, your tennis career, your failed business ventures, your
Yeah.
challenging relationships, they're all setting you up to be able to help, and that's where experience doesn't just come from the tennis court, it comes from life. And I think when you do that, you're in your best place to then be able to help other people as well.
So 30
How
years to
did
be
you
overnight
know if you're
success.
going to be? How did you know if you're going to be a singles or doubles player? Can you tell me that?
Well, people, I'm going to answer that in 2 ways, one from a player perspective and one from a coach's perspective. We're obsessed in tennis of giving people a stamp. You're a singles player, you're a doubles player, you coach women, you coach men, you coach children, you coach juniors, you do this. It's all bullshit. We as coaches, and if I start on that first, you coach people is what you do.
Yep.
Ultimately, that's what you're doing. You're coaching people, and I like to think that is. I really believe that, and I believe this from since I was quite young. I think I was put on this earth to play a coaching role with people. I think it's something I've always found quite natural. It's why I think I was a good doubles player, because I was able to play a coach role and leadership role within the doubles team. But I was ranked 600 in the world in singles and 150, 140 in the world in doubles. I played both. I just happened to in the last 6, 8 months of my career to have a higher ranking in doubles. So I played some bigger tournaments in doubles, but I was just a tennis player. And it's the same now with coaching. I've coached singles players, doubles players, singles players, whatever you want to do. And I've also coached some people in a business sense, it's ultimately, I think if you have the skills to coach people, then you can do it all. And knowledge is relatively easy to pick up, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
slightly different tactics on either side. But I would have said I was a tennis player and I played singles and doubles. I just happened to be a little bit better for various reasons at doubles.
Great. And so let us get into the AO now, and
Yep.
both your ladies and your men's doubles. So it seems to me, watching, is that most matches go to tie breaks, most sets, and then the final set is decided by the tie break. So winners and losers are often separated by the thinnest of margins, 1, 2, 3 points.
Yep.
Is this, how do you train to beat? Is this just luck, or is there choice and training?
It's absolutely choice, right? I mean, you will have luck elements to it. I mean, it's one of the things I love about Grand Slams is you actually have best of three sets, which makes it even more about choice, you know. But
Oh,
but even
yeah.
but even that being said, in the rest of the year where it is the two sets, the sudden death juice, the tie breaks, you're going to lose the odd match through a bit of bad luck when you've done the right things. However, my strong belief is tennis and doubles in particular is a muscle relaxant sport. Yeah.
What do you
So
mean by that?
people play their best tennis when they are in the best headspace and relaxed and able
Yep.
to play. There's a flow, there's a freedom, there's a way. So so having the way, my belief in doubles is very much how do we get our opponents out of that relaxed muscle relaxed way and provide stress and tension and I think if you're able to do that over the course of a match, over the course of a tournament, over the course of a year, you will ultimately come out on top more often than not if you are committed to the style that you're doing and you're not playing with doubt. You know, and that's where the flip side of that is having clarity of identity, clarity of patterns of play, clarity of what you're doing on, because those things will help you play with relaxed muscles, relaxed mind. And over that course, if you're winning 52% over the course of a year, 53%, you're winning a hell of a lot of tennis matches.
Yeah.
Yes.
Andrew, anything to say?
Oh, look, exactly what you just said, and you just saw as Federer has retired, he quoted nearly the same things that you're quoting. 52% of the time he was winning matches, and it's the key points. So it's great to hear it. And I love the word flow. Flow is your most natural state of mind to get the best out of a player.
Absolutely.
Dan, so we don't have time. So you've just dropped a few knowledge bombs which lead to subsidiary questions like how do you train identity and other things, which we won't have time to go into today. So it's more than just ball striking, basically.
Ball striking is a very small part of it, in my opinion, you know, and like it's a lot of tennis players love talking about feel. I'm feeling the ball, how the ball is on the racket. Again, I call bullshit. It's like, you know, to get yourself in the right headspace, you know, commit to doing the right things, you know, and if you're able to do that, if you play 150 points in the match, you do that for all 150. You know, you compete like hell, you know, you fight hard, you know, you stay committed to the right way, then you're going to come out, you're going to give yourself a chance of coming out close to the top. And ultimately with the ball striking piece, you'll never really be happy with that. You might be happy once a year, once every 2 years, you'll come away and go, wow, I played unbelievable, it felt amazing today. But the problem is, going back into the muscle relaxant, if you're putting a premium on feeling good and hitting the ball good, the day that you're now stressed, you're now anxious, you're now dealing with things, you're now uptight, you lose that flow, you lose that ability to do all of those things. So, you know, absolutely normalizing that it's okay not to hit the ball well, I think is a very important thing for us as coaches.
And there's a difference between hitting the ball well and being consistent and hitting targets.
Absolutely, you know, and look, tennis does differ with singles and doubles, right? And you know, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of difference. And you know, in doubles is a even more patterned game than singles. You know, so especially the way that the players that I happen to work with do play the game of doubles as well. So we know that if they hit their targets, then life is a lot easier because it's about dominating the territory of the court and when the ball goes in a certain area, and obviously you have to do that with variation so people don't pick it up. But if you do those things, it tends to equate to the ball coming to a place that you want to. If you're missing those targets on certain days, okay, dig in and find another way. You know, you might have to make a couple more volleys, or you might have to do something a bit different.
I want to ask you about failure, because if you're just going to be winning, say 52% of the points, then you'd be losing something like 48. So how do you train failure in training, so that failure in a match has less emotional and what you call it muscle relaxant?
The number one way I would train failure is normalizing and knowing your sport, actually. So that's the first bit. You know, players need to understand. So the example I would give, players miss a ball, come off, lose a match, and they say, "Oh, I had that break point at 4-all, 30-40. I had that break point, messed up, should have broken." And it's like, well, actually, statistically, you need 3 or 4 break points to get a break of serve. So know your sport. You know, Rafael Nadal won how many, 14 Roland Garroses. He lost 46, 47% of the points he ever played in Paris. The greatest
Wow.
ever male player on a clay court is losing almost half the points. So why do you think you're not going to do that? You know, Serena Williams, one of the greatest female servers of all time. Her average first serve percentage is 62%. So she's missing 4 out of 10 serves, you know, first serves. And so I think knowing the sport and normalizing of that is really important, you know, so to have the right spin on it. The second part of that, Mark, and look, we talk about it all the time, and it's a little bit cliche, but you know, when failure is deemed and linked to an outcome, then we have a problem. If failure is deemed as not committing to a process, that's fixable. You know, I don't want to always say control the controllables every time I speak to someone, because it's my favorite thing and it's the name of my podcast. But that goes deep for me, because it genuinely is. What's the number one thing we can control? We can control ourselves. You know, we can't control necessarily if we win the match or lose the match. We can't control, you know, certain errors, but we can control our commitment to a process, and getting the success failure bit, because this is a massive subject, right? Success and failure.
Well, we just
we
touched
could
on
talk,
identity, massive subject.
we could talk about these for days and hours and all of these things, and it is fascinating. But I think getting the right success measures in place is really important, because I think people falsely look at failure, you know, and then it feels a bit deeper, right? It feels a bit stronger, that emotion. Whereas if we're able to have our success measures a bit clearer, and I will do that with players. You know, I've just done it now. The success measures for the players for the Australian Open, and not one of them says lift the trophy at the end. That'll be the byproduct, hopefully. But if we commit to the right things, and we succeed on a daily basis at what we're doing on and off the court, then we give ourselves the best shot, and we see where it takes us. You know, and it's happened to have taken Erin and Gaby to the heights of the game, but they've got more they want to achieve. If they get caught up in an outcome at any moment and their mind goes into that, they're going to experience some strong emotions that'll probably lead to them not performing the way that they want to.
Relax. I love your term, muscle relaxant sport. I've never ever heard that before.
Yeah, and we're not playing rugby, right? We're playing tennis.
Yeah.
Andrew, anything to say before I question?
Yeah, look, the idea of errors, you can learn from errors, and when they're not taken as a negative but a learning device, that's amazing, and the body just keeps developing tactics around it. There were some really good points in the Adelaide Open where they were attacking. Yeah, it was an amazing match where it turned on its head nearly just by breaking down someone's best shot. So it can be a tactic, but it's really nice when you can see it on TV as well.
Absolutely.
Do you do it when So will you talk to, so you talked about a few great things. Any other training tips, mainly for amateurs, because pros aren't going to be watching this, so they can improve their beating versus better ratio
Yeah.
and get out a training technique and get training the paradigm of better, of beating?
Well, I think on that, Mark, look, you've also, we talked about all of these things, and they're all kind of their philosophies and concepts and their various things. The bottom line is you got to get out there and do it, and you got to get out there and you've got to rep it as well. Okay, you've got to get the reps in. You
So
know,
what about
there's
pressure
also,
then? Pressure
yeah,
rep.
well, pressure, and again, it's another great subject because like our true tennis level is our competition level under pressure. Yet 95% of the time, which we're practicing without pressure, and 5% of times we're playing competitions. So, so how do you make that 95% of time more pressure, more related? And again, the thing for me, and there'll be different ways. So I'll give again a couple of examples on that. Different people, again, I keep talking about this light in our mind. You know, the light in our mind goes off for different people in different ways. You know, some people, the light of the mind goes off because they're scared of maybe a forfeit. Some is more reward based. If you go on the practice court with Dan Evans, Dan won't mind me saying this, it's brutal from the word go. It's more, there's more pressure in Dan Evans's practice session than there is on a match. And it's like the first 5 minutes, whoever hits the first ball in the net, 20 quid. 20 quid. Okay, both. Geez, okay, geez. You know, you're on it. And then it's like, okay, we're gonna play a tiebreak to 7. Loser pays for dinner tonight. And you know, like, and that's how because what he might not know it scientifically what it is, but what it is his mind lights up. That's what gets him locked in, which is ultimately what pressure does to us, right?
Yeah.
And he's very reward based in that, so he makes all of those things happen. So there is a constant, like I would have, and I've just started with Michael Venus and Nikola Mektic, but last week in Auckland, a couple of times I didn't think practice, you know, they were hard workers, but it was missing something. It was missing a little bit of something. So I was putting certain accountabilities in there, and that was, I was just using pride pressure, you know, but this a new relationship, new starting point. So, you know, they don't want to let each other down, you know, and as I get to know them, we might put more things into there, you know, and it's about that, and it's not constant because you don't always want to constantly, because sometimes you want to lessen the pressure to be able to develop certain other skills, but you also don't want people to not be in that pressure cooker. But the last thing I'd say on it, Mark, is it's also why players will there's no substitute to playing build-up matches to tournaments as well. So you can, so that you can feel it. And a wiser man than myself once said, you know, whoever wins the warm-up events in, this might be at the club championship, this might be, you know, at futures events, this might be at ITF juniors, but my advice to anybody that's trying to play, before maybe you spend your money and go and play international tournaments or bigger national level tournaments or whatever it might be, just get used to shaking hands as a winner, you know, and get used to yourself also playing that volume of matches, because there really and truly isn't a substitute for that, you know,
Yeah.
for experiencing that and getting it on there as well. And that then comes down to smart scheduling, you know, and
Yeah.
I can feel a tangent coming, but again, it's maybe worth saying, and that was the with, I sat down with Gaby and Erin, and I don't know if you've seen the news now with Gaby Dabrowski, but so she was diagnosed with cancer last year.
Yeah. I was speaking to her, Dr. Erin Boynton, that was helping her out on
Okay,
the journey.
yes. So obviously that was a big thing that she carried, but within our team last year. But before she played US Open, you know, she'd been having treatment and hadn't played much. So US Open, she's probably a little bit underprepared, a little bit under-repped. And I mean, they still made quarterfinals, but you know, in those pressure moments, they didn't quite perform. They were a break up in the second and third sets in the quarterfinals, you know, and they didn't quite that choice versus luck. They didn't have the luck, but they hadn't quite got the reps in to get them over the line. And we sat there a few tears in the gym in US Open, and we then put the plan together to try and win the WTA finals. And a big part of that plan was one, getting the volume in with myself. So my wife and kids agreed that I could go to China for 3.5 weeks, not for the competition. Actually, that was the rep part of it. That was the training part. It was like, we need to get the numbers in, and we need to get the quality numbers in. And then we knew they needed to get the matches. So we added a couple of extra tournaments in Japan. And we said, look, go to Japan. We want you to play 6 to 7 matches in 2 weeks. They played 7. And then they turned up in Saudi and they were ready. And they then went 5-0 in Saudi and won the big prize. That didn't happen by luck. I'm telling you that right now. You know, that was a very clear, structured plan. Now, you know, they obviously could have lost some of those matches, but the work was put in, the detail was put in, the commitment and the reps were put in, and they then felt very comfortable. We got the right energy together about the team around them as well. We had a lot of fun the week leading in. We then had a lot of fun. So we got them in a relaxed mindset. And, you know, you can't force these things, but all of these things happened, but they did happen for a reason. You know, that was the reason, was to try and be in the best place to win the WTA finals. But we had to commit to a process and plan a process. And that's a nice example, I think, of how good things can happen.
Dan Kiernan, I would love you to be my coach. Just so great. What you haven't mentioned, and we won't get into it anyway, is about technique. Everything you said so far has been other things apart from technique.
Yeah,
I
and
want to ask you a question, what you said last time about Louis Cayer, about
yes,
dusting the lines and your processes and patterns and targets and mental game leading up to what you know is going to be the win or lose points, and will they dust the lines?
yeah. Well, Louis, I didn't fully get that question, but I think you're asking about Louis. But Louis is a genius, right? And I'm very lucky to have worked with Louis. I really am. You know, like, I'm unfortunately not working with him anymore because I don't coach any Brits. So he's actually the opposition right now. But I get on great with Louis, and I had a nice chat with him earlier today. But I don't have that same access to him as when I was working alongside him with players. And yeah, look, the base of all of my philosophies have come from Louis Cayer, right? That's ultimately what the philosophy is that he's had, and it always boils down to this 52%. And you know, you do the right things, you set the right identities up with the team. You know, you commit. I call it committing to kind of the most helpful actions and attentions at given moments, and you give yourself the best chance of winning tennis matches. And if you go into matches and you're the one that's giving yourself the best chance to do it, sustainable success is what we're after. You know, that's what we're after. We're not after a one-off win. We're after sustainable success. And sustainable success comes on the back of all of those things.
Okay, so the question which I talked over was that they can clean the lines early on in the match. Can they clean the lines when
Yes. So
the match hangs on it?
yeah, no, and exactly that, right? It's like there's many different ways of building stress on opponents. And if you're a little caveat to this story, which might be again, there was on social media a couple of weeks ago, they had a top 10 Division 1 doubles player, and the coach was serving against him, and his aim was to hit the ball in the tram lines down the line. No pressure, no other players on the court, no match situation. Out of 20, how many do you think he hit in the tram lines?
I'll go 12. I want some success.
3.
Oh
Three,
God, I was going to
two.
go 5. Wow,
So
3.
it's
With no pressure.
no pressure, just because, well, the
No
serve,
pressure.
pressure from the serve.
Third.
So the serve
Yeah.
wasn't just a dolly. The serve was a.
No.
The reality is the skill of being able to continually hit the ball close to the lines is a very difficult skill. And if someone, if someone's able to do it, and I said this to the girls, they lost the first set in the US Open 2023 to Leylah Fernandez and Taylor Townsend, and they played a great set. But Leylah Fernandez and Taylor Townsend painted some lines. They played great.
Yeah.
And I just said to the girls, if they can do that for another set, you shake their hands and you say, "Well done, what a great match."
Good option.
But what you're doing is fantastic, and I'm not convinced they can keep it up. So no panic. You don't need to change anything. Do what you're doing. And they ended up winning 7-6 in the third set. And that's the philosophy. The philosophy is not to, if someone can do that, okay, well done. Not many, if any, ever do it for a full match. And they certainly don't do it for a full tournament, a full week, a full month, because it goes back into sustainable success. It's not just about that. If someone obviously is doing it for a long, you might make an adjustment. So Louis' rule is, if you get beaten 3 times in the tram lines, then you adjust. But it doesn't happen in men's doubles. It doesn't happen ever.
Per set, three times per set.
No match.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, the slight thing on that, I think it happens more in women's doubles, and it will happen more in club doubles than it will. Men's doubles is so dominant from the serve and the spots that are being hit that it really doesn't happen very often.
I noticed the Italians right up on the net as well, so they were less than a metre away from the net as the service partner, and the serve dominating and someone poaching with high angles.
Yeah, but I to bring this back to a more relatable level, I was speaking to my mother-in-law a few months ago, who plays tennis, ladies' morning once a week, at the local club, and I got a drawing out, and she was telling me where she stands, and I moved her over purely position, just to add a bit of pressure and stress to the opponent, not from hitting a tennis ball, just from pure positioning. And she texted me a couple of weeks later and went, "Oh my God, it's unbelievable how many balls come to me, or how many times the people are missing, because now all of a sudden there's a different target." So controlling the territory and the space on the court, or the unknown, the movement that you do, you don't have to be a good tennis player to do that. You just need to be able to, create that stress.
As Roger Federer used to say, occupy space. The match is about occupying space in the other person's brain.
Absolutely.
Look, we're running out of time, and as you say, we could speak for hours over dinner and a nice glass of red wine. Probably for me to finish off, and then Andrew can have a finish off question. Mine is about, it's okay serving and closing out the tie break, but return a serve. So I think women return serve better than they serve. What's your thoughts or tactics with Gaby and Erin when they're returning serve to close out?
Depends who they play, I guess. It obviously the difference between men and women's doubles is the serve is less dominant in women's. So because the serve is less dominant, the return is more effective. So points are starting from a different play. They're starting from a position of the servers not being in as strong as a position in general. So I guess if you're in a position where Gaby and Erin had that against Paulini and Irani in WTA finals, there were 6-1, 6-1 down, 6-5 down Irani to serve. And they came over to me and I said to them, "Girls, you've lost the first hour of this match, and you feel like shit because you've lost the first hour of the match." I said, "However, If you win the next 15 minutes, you win the match. And that's what tennis is. And they broke her on. He won the tiebreak, won the super tiebreak. And Gaby turned to me and said, "We won the last 15 minutes." And it was like, yeah, don't forget that. So there's always, I think there's always, in women's doubles, you probably have the feeling of hope a little bit more, or the feeling, if you're playing men's doubles and you're playing against Max Purcell, or you're playing against someone who you know, Henry Patton, you know it's a little bit out of your hands, right? You know, if he hits his spots on his serve, you know, you're hoping that he doesn't. You're hoping he doesn't hit his spots. Whereas in women's doubles, in general, you know, a little bit more lock-in. You know, there's always quite a big opportunity to break serve. But the tactics will be different against different players, because are you playing a serve volleyer? Not many in women's doubles, but there is some. You know, are you playing someone who doesn't move at the net? So I call it the seam of the court, the middle part of the court. And if you're playing someone who doesn't move at the net at all, then you can attack the seam of the court, you know, because that reduces the angles. It puts it, you're in a really nice position. If you're playing against very active players, you would attack the side of the net a little bit more. If you're playing against certain people, you want to push them back and get them off the net, so you'd use the lob. So you would have different tactics against different types of players to ultimately set up the formation you want, right? You know, so when people play Gaby and Erin, they try and lob them quite a bit because they don't want them at the net. You know, we know that. Now, it's not a great tactic because they're very good at overheads. So but they want to remove them from the position of strength that they try and take, the way that they play. So all of these things are all very much discussed beforehand. I use data analytics. We know, we use video analysis. We've got all of these things in place, and yeah, you're ultimately, we might make little changes within a match, but ultimately we know most of the players' strengths and weaknesses. And if the weak shot can beat us in the big moments, then well done. Like Siniakova beat us with her weakest return at Wimbledon, and she hit it unbelievably well. But we then beat her, or the girls beat her in the WTA finals, because she didn't hit it as well. You know, and that's the way it goes a little bit in this sport.
Andrew, I'm going to have to let off for another celebrity live stream. Dan, you have made my day today. This has been such an enthralling conversation. Thank you very much. Andrew?
Thank you for having me. Always.
Look, Daniel, we want to, our listeners would like to know more. What's your academy's name, just so we can promote you?
Soto Tennis Academy. So SOTO Tennis Academy.
And your
Tennis
podcast,
Academy,
because your podcast is great.
Yeah, and tell us about, what's the podcast name?
A podcast is Control the Controllables.
All the Controllables. I love it.
Control
All right, look, Daniel,
and he keeps
thanks for
winning
all that.
all the awards on his podcast. Voting coming up
Yes.
very soon for the next award, Dan.
Only 24 hours left, Mark.
I know. I'll be there for you. I'll be in the trenches for you. Look, thank you so much. Have a fabulous AO, and we'll speak to you soon. It's a treat, Dan. It's a treat.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, my bald one. There we go.
Okay, welcome to another